31st of July 2023 in Queens High School that was situated a few kilometers from the Johannesburg Central Business District. During lunch break, after eating his lunch, a student had to use the toilet. So he walked to the student's toilet, relieved himself, and just as he was about to walk out, a group of students ambushed him and pinned him against the wall. They assaulted him and forced him to drink a toxic substance, and then they let him go. This is the story of Brian Datenda Ndlovu. Brian Ndlovu, who was 15 years old, was born on the 19th of April 2008 to mother Mildred Ndlovu and father Charles Ndlovu. Brian lived in Johannesburg, Gauteng, with both his parents and younger siblings. Brian was described by his friends and family as kind, humble, down-to-earth, and loved to laugh. Simba, Brian's friend, said Brian was like a brother to him. They spoke about anything and everything. He also said no one will replace him. Brian was a grade 9 Queens High School student who was a rugby player at school, as he loved the sport and he was a mad Liverpool fan. On the morning of the 31st of July, Brian prepared for school as usual and was looking forward to what the day had in store for him. A teacher at his school would transport him to and from the school. So as he heard a honk from the car, he waved goodbye to his mom and then he was off to school. According to Brian, he was often bullied at school by other students. So during the school day, just before lunch break, there was a bullying incident, and Brian, trying to defend himself against one of the bullies, quickly found himself in the principal's office. The principal then called both Brian and the other students' parents because fighting was not allowed at school. So he called the parents to resolve the issue. Then the students were dismissed to class. When lunch break came, Brian decided to quickly use the toilet before lunch break ran out, so he headed for the toilets. The school had working cameras all around the school, but none of them were inside the toilets, as it was not permitted. So as Brian went inside the toilets, he would later say, after relieving himself, a group of 4 matriculants cornered him, subjected him to a physical assault, and coerced him into consuming a rat poison. He then left the toilet and went back to class. The school's cameras were able to pick up Brian entering and leaving the toilet, but unfortunately what happened inside the toilet couldn't be seen. After school, at around 3:30 p.m., Brian went back home. When he arrived at home, he found his mom, and his mom noticed that something was wrong with her child. Brian was acting unusual. His mom would later say Brian complained about being cold. He then put on a jacket and went to sleep. Brian's mom found that to be odd because it was a warm day. When Brian woke up from his afternoon nap, his mom was alarmed because he looked like he was shivering. She asked him what was wrong, and he said nothing was wrong. That's when he went next door to visit his friend Simba. When he arrived at his friend's place, he confided to him what happened at school. He told him about the incident that occurred at the toilet, that a group of boys ganged up on him, assaulted him, and forced him to drink rat poison. When he returned home, he decided to just tell his mom about the events at school. He told her he was poisoned and asked her for milk. He told his mom the incident was not his first. He had been bullied at school since January of the year. He then told his mom she could ask any of his friends at school. They knew exactly what was happening to him. When Brian's dad arrived home from work, he was pretty upset about the phone call he received from Brian's school about Brian fighting. He, however, found Brian not in a good state. In fact, Brian was getting worse and worse with every passing minute. Brian would tell his father about the bullying he experienced at school, and the bullies were boys from rich families who funded the school. Brian's parents quickly decided to take him to the nearest medical facility. He was taken to Hillbrow Community Health Center. Brian was attended to, and as they kept trying to help him, his condition didn't get any better, but worse. The medical practitioners did everything they could think of to try and save Brian, but unfortunately, Brian lost his life. His family was beyond devastated and just couldn't believe that he was gone. His life was stolen by a gang of school children. It was just unfathomable. When the school was notified about Brian's passing, they responded in an unfortunate manner. The principal passed on his condolences and said the school takes any reports of bullying seriously, and said they have never been reports from Brian or his family that he was involved in any kind of bullying in the school. Brian's mom said Brian told her before going to the hospital that he couldn't tell her anything because he was afraid that she would go to the school and the boys would bully him even worse than before. So he decided to keep it to himself. I think it's fair to say almost every bullied child fears this. That's why they're scared to say anything. Just because Brian didn't come forward about the bullying, it doesn't necessarily mean it didn't happen. The principal continued to tell them that since Brian left the school okay and didn't look sick, even attending all of his classes after the incident allegedly happened, he doesn't believe that it happened. He said they should consider that Brian took his life when he arrived home and not at school. I personally think it was insensitive and unfair for him to make such an assumption and actually word that to Brian's parents. When word got out about what happened to Brian, it sent shockwaves throughout the community, and the community was outraged. Brian's family were informed of a group of 6 students who were terrorizing other kids at school. Outraged parents staged protests demanding stronger measures to address the issue of bullying within the school. The incident sparked a thorough investigation by the Gauteng Department of Education and the police as authorities aimed to bring the perpetrators to justice. A week after the incident, Brian Ndlovu's life was honored and celebrated by family and friends, and was later laid to rest. This is still an ongoing case.